All right, today we're doing section A3, obviously, and we are going to learn about something called special right triangles. Special right triangles. And we're going to do one today, and then we're going to do one tomorrow. All right, so the one today is a triangle that looks just like this. It's a right triangle, okay, because it's a special right triangle. So there you go. Now, what's special about it? Well, it's special because this side is equal to this side. All right, you know that already. Well, I mean, you might have not known that till I put it on there, but we've talked about triangles that look like this. So if this side is equal to this side, tell me something about these two angles right here. They're equal too. What kind of a triangle is this? Besides being a right triangle, what type of triangle if two sides are equal? It's isosceles. Very good. It's an isosceles triangle. And on an isosceles right triangle, well, actually on any isosceles triangle, the angles opposite the two equal sides are always equal to each other. So this angle is equal to this angle right here. That's not new, is it? We've talked about that in the past. Okay, that's nothing new. Here's what we're getting at. If this angle is equal to this one, I can actually figure out how many degrees this angle actually is. So what is it, Joe? 45. Very good. That's 45. How'd you get 45, Joe? That's right. So watch. Really, on any right triangle, the other two angles have to be 90 degrees, don't they? Because 180 minus 90 is 90, right? So these two have to add up to 90. If they're both exactly the same, what do? Split it in half, take half of it, right? Divide it by 2. 90 divided by 2 is 45. Everybody see that? So we call this, we give this a name. We call this a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Some people call it 45, 45 right triangle. I don't know, I say 45, 45, 90 triangle. Those are just little dashes. Somebody in the other class said, is that a minus? No, I'm not subtracting. They're just little dashes just to separate the 45, the 45, and the 90. Okay? You say, well, okay, big deal. I haven't learned anything new so far. All right, but you will here in a second. I hope you will anyway. I'm going to at least teach you something new. Let's call, what is this side right here? We've talked about this before last couple days. It's the hypotenuse. We'll call it H for hypotenuse, okay? And this would be a what? And this would be what? A leg, right, a leg of the hypotenuse. I'm just going to give it the letter A just to make it nice and easy. Now, if this is A, what is this down here? Let's just call it A. Why would I just call it A? Because they're the same, exactly the same. I wouldn't call it B, because to me, if I called it B, that would indicate that they're two different lengths, wouldn't it? But they're not two different lengths. What are they? They're the same, right? So if I called this one A, what would I call this one? I'd call that one A. Make sense? Watch what I'm going to do. We just finished talking about Pythagorean theorem, didn't we? So just bear with me. I want to show you what we're going to do here. Let's do Pythagorean theorem and solve for H. All right, so how would I set this up if I was going to do Pythagorean theorem and solve for H? H squared equals A squared plus what? A squared. Good. Let's simplify this. Now watch, this is 1A squared and this is 1A squared. If I add them together, algebra 1, it's 2A squared. Very good. It's 2A squared. So far, so good? What am I trying to do? What did I say I was trying to do? Solve for H, right. So what would be my next step? Square root. Very good. Square root this side, square root this side. So what do I get on the left-hand side? Just H. Okay, now let's think about this. If you have two things being multiplied together, for instance, if I had this, if I had the square root of 5 times 2, isn't that the same as just saying the square root of 5 times the square root of 2? You guys didn't learn this in Algebra 1, did you? You should have learned this in Algebra 1, but you're learning it now, okay? There's a rule in algebra that says if I have two things that are being multiplied inside of a square root, guess what I can do? I can split them up, right, into their own square roots, but I'm still multiplying them together. Make any sense? All right, so that's the rule. That's not a hard rule, is it? So look what I'm going to do here. I'm going to split these up. So what would I have? I would have what? The square root of 2. And what else would I have? Square root of what? A. Not just A. What's in there? It's A squared. Do you see that? That's this rule right here. Okay, this is a rule from algebra that you should have learned, but you didn't. So let's see what we have. The square root of 2 I can't do anything with. I'm just going to keep it the square root of 2. What about this? What's the square root of A squared? It's just A. Right, we talked about that earlier. we did the same thing here, right? When I took the square root of h squared, just canceled out, and I got an h. What happens here? Square root and a square cancel out. I just have an a. Now, look, this is really important, okay? Stay out of the bag. You're like 2 inches from me. How do you think I wasn't going to know you're getting chips out of your bag? I'm not that old. I'm not like 90 and I can't hear anything, you know? All right, look at this. This is really important right here. I'm going to put that triangle on here again just so we can see it. I don't have to keep scrolling back and forth. Now, what did I just do? Look, this was H, right? And this was A, and this was A. What is this telling me? It's telling me on any 45, 45, 90 triangle, H is what? The hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is equal to the square root of 2 times either one of these legs. All right, so if I know the leg, I can just very easily find the hypotenuse. What do I do if I know that leg to find the hypotenuse? What does it say to do? I take that leg and do what to it? Multiply it by, not 2, that's not a 2. It's a square root of 2. It's a lot different number. Let me show you. A lot of people make that mistake. Look, 2 is a 2, right? So that's 2. Watch what the square root of 2 is. Watch, the square root of 2. It's not 2. Look at that. The square root of 2 is about 1.4. You see that? Is 2 and 1.4 the same thing? No. Okay, a lot of people say that, oh, it's just 2. It's not a 2. It's a square root of 2. It's really like a 1.4. So you can't say they're the same thing. So really, how do we find the hypotenuse? Hypotenuse is equal to the leg times what? The square root of 2. You guys aren't seeing this, are you? I can tell. This formula tells me if I want to find the hypotenuse, I take the leg and I just do what to it? Multiply it by the square root of 2. Okay? That's all I do to find the hypotenuse. I don't have to do Pythagorean theorem now, do I? Because I already did. Look, I already did Pythagorean theorem to get this. All I got to do now is use this fact to find the hypotenuse. Watch. This is way easier than what you guys are making it seem. Because I don't know. I'm just trying to gauge you, you know? So I'm not getting many right answers here. I'm just trying to gauge if you're getting this or not. And I'm not really sure if you're completely getting it. But this will help. What if that side was 5 right there? And it's 45 and 45. What would this side down here be? That's easy, right? Because they're both equal to each other. What about the hypotenuse? The hypotenuse isn't even much more difficult than that. How do we find the hypotenuse? Look at my formula. Hypotenuse is equal to what? The square root of 2 times one of these legs. Well, what are one of my legs now? 5. So what's my hypotenuse? It's 5, no, times the square root of 2. Remember, it's not a 2. It's not a 2. You can't go 5 times 2, right? It's not double. It's only 1.4, right? So it's 5 times the square root of 2. Are we getting this or not? Okay, I'm getting a few. Oh, yeah, I see it. That's what I like to hear. I don't think I'm getting enough of those. Let's do another one. Let's get rid of this, get rid of this. Yeah, that would be my answer. I would just write it just like that. If you really wanted to put it into a calculator, you could. I wouldn't make you do it. Watch. Here's how you would put it into this kind of calculator. Is anybody actually using a scientific calculator? Raise your hand. Got 1. Anybody else using 2? Anybody else? Okay. I'll show you how to use this one. Now, unfortunately, I don't have one of those smaller calculators to put up here. I really haven't even looked for one. Maybe there might be one floating around online. I haven't found one yet, but I'll try to find one. But I do have this one. So watch. 5 squared of 2. Here's how I do this. 5. Then I hit the square root button, and then I put a 2, and I close it, parentheses, and I hit equals, and there it is, 7.07, or you could say 7.1, all right? So if this was 5, this is 5 square root of 2, or what? 7, what did I say it was? 7.1, right? So 7.1. Notice, it's approximately 7.1. It's exactly 5 square root of 2. I know that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to you right now. Later on, the more math you do, you'll appreciate that a little more. It's approximately 7.1. Does that make sense that the hypotenuse could be 7.1 and the leg could be 5? Absolutely. Hypotenuse is always the longest side, isn't it? Remember we talked about that yesterday? All right, so yeah, that definitely makes sense that that's 7.1 and that's a 5. All right, let's do another one. It's really no different at all. It's just a different number. What if this was, I don't know, 13? What would this bottom side be? 13. What would this be? That's it. That's all there is to it. See how easy that is? You don't even have to do any real math. All you got to do is stick that 13 next to a square root of 2, and that's your answer. Circle it. That's it. That's all you got to do. It is easy. Really easy. Would you agree? Okay. Let's do another one. It's not always going to be quite that easy. All right. Let me make you aware of that. It's not much harder than that. What if I did this? I'll tell you what. I'm going to throw another number in here just to make sure you know what we're doing. What if that side was 3? What's the bottom? 3. What's the hypotenuse? 3 square root of 2. Good, good, good. I think we're getting it now. Make sense? So if the sides are whole numbers, then this is just whatever that number is times the square root of 2. Simple. Jamie?
Just give us the hypotenuse.
They will. I'm glad you asked that. We're not going to get to that right now. In a couple minutes we will. Okay? That's a good question. Sometimes they will give you the hypotenuse, and you're going to have to find the leg. Okay, we'll do that in a minute. Let's do another one, though. What if they give, I don't know, this isn't any more difficult. What if they said that this side was 7.3? How would you find the hypotenuse? That's it. Very good. It's just 7.3 times the square root of 2. You got it? All right, so even if they give you a decimal, what if they gave you a fraction? What if they said that this was 7 over 2? How would you write this? 7 over 2, square root of 2. That's it. Okay? It's a little bit nicer if you wrote it like this. I'm not going to make you do it, but I'll just show you just for the fun of it. Watch. 7 square root of 2 over 2. That's a better way to write it. It's the same thing, though, isn't it? Because 7 times this, right, over 2 times 1. That's a nicer way to write it. But I would accept that. If you wrote it like that, it'd be fine. Wouldn't mind. Okay? Not right now. When you get in Algebra 2, though, yeah, I would want you to write it like this. Right now, in geometry, I'm fine with you writing it like this. Got it? Let's do another one before we get to giving you the hypotenuse. This will be the last one of these we do. What if... Well, I might give you a couple examples like this. What if that was the square root of 5? First of all, what's the bottom going to be? Square root of 5. Okay, I hardly have to say that anymore, do I? What about this? What's this going to be?
Square root of 5.
Square root of 5 times what? Square root of 2. But this isn't really a good way to write your answer. Okay, pretend you were doing some other math problem, right? You're doing all this work, and it boils down to, I don't know, I'm just making this up. Let's say you come down, you do all this work, and you get 7 times 3. Are you going to circle 7 times 3 for your answer? No, of course not. You're going to do one more step and get what? 21. You're going to get 21 and circle your answer. Agreed? Well, same thing here. You're not going to keep it the square root of 5 times the square root of 2. That's just kind of ugly. Say it. Exactly right. Remember the rule? Right now, they're 2 individual square roots, but what can we do with those? Put them both underneath of them, right? Under one square root, multiply them together. And what does that become? Square root of 10. It's not a 10. It's a square root of 10. It's a lot different of a number. Square root of 10 is like 3.1 or something like that. Okay? That's a lot different than 10, isn't it? This is the square root of 10. What number multiplied by itself is going to give you 10? That's what that number is. Get it? Okay. Now, what you've all been waiting for. What if I gave you this? What if I gave you the hypotenuse? Let's say, I don't know, just to make it 7. What if I gave you the hypotenuse? How would you find one of the legs? Let's think about it. Before you answer, watch. If I knew the leg, how did you get the hypotenuse? Listen, don't answer that old question. Answer this question. If you knew the leg, how did you get the hypotenuse? You what? Multiply by square root of 2. Okay? Take the leg, multiply by square root of 2, correct? So if I know the leg, I multiply it by square root of 2. What if I know the hypotenuse? How do I get to the leg? Divide it by the square root of 2. Exactly right. You see that? So if I know the leg, I multiply it by square root of 2. If I know the hypotenuse, I what? Divide it by square root of 2. I want you to see why. Look at your formula. H equals the square root of 2 times A, which is the leg, isn't it? How do I get that by itself? It's being multiplied, so I divide it by square root of 2 here. Come over here and do what? Divide that by square root of 2. So what's the leg? The leg is the hypotenuse divided by the square root of 2. You see it? So if I know this, how do I find x? I take 7 and do what to it? Divide it by the square root of 2. And I'm okay if you just leave it like that. Now let me tell you again, just so I'm warning you. When you get into Algebra 2, they're not going to let you keep it like this. For some reason, having a square root in the denominator, they don't like that. They call it rationalizing the denominator. You'll learn that when you get to Algebra 2. And again, that's something that maybe should have been taught in Algebra 1, but you probably just skip that chapter or something, I guess. I don't know. All right? So anyway, they don't want you keeping the square root on the bottom, and they'll show you a way when you get to Algebra 2 how to get rid of that square root. If you really, really want to know, I'll show you some other time, okay? But not right now. But you can just keep it like that. That's fine. 7 divided by square root of 2. If you wanted to, you could do what to it? Put it in a calculator. So let's see what we get. 7 divided by the square roots of 2, and that equals, it's about 4.9, let's say. All right, so that's about 4.9. Does it make sense? Does it make sense that the leg is 4.9 and the hypotenuse is 7? Sure it does. All right, because it's smaller than the hypotenuse, isn't it? All right. Always make sure that your answers make sense to you. Don't get some crazy number. What if I got a crazy number like 37.8? Does that make any sense? The hypotenuse would be 7 and the leg is 37.8? No. So make sure that you understand that your answers kind of make sense. Does that make any sense at all? All right. Let me do one more type. We got a couple minutes here, and then we'll be finished with it. So again, if you know the hypotenuse, what do you do to find the leg? Divide it by the square root of 2. What if you know the leg? How do you get the hypotenuse? You multiply it, times it by the, not 2. You said 2. You said 2. What is it? It's not 2, it's what? Square root of 2. Square root of 2. All right. So what if we had this? Watch this. This looks like it would be harder. It's not so bad. What if we had square root of, I don't know, 14? What if that was the square root of 14? How would you find the leg? That's right. Take the square root of 14 divided by the square root of 2. Now watch. Remember on this, we wouldn't go 7 times 3. What if you had it? What if you were working a problem and you got like this, like 12 divided by 3? Would you leave your answer 12 divided by 3? How would you write this answer? Okay, well you wouldn't leave this one like this either. Okay, it's watch. You make one big square root, and what's 14 divided by 2? It's 7. So what is it? It's the square root of what? 7. Okay? Look, let's go the other way and check to see if it works. What if I told you that that side was the square root of 7? What would I do to get the hypotenuse? Square root of 7 times square root of 2, which is what? So it all makes sense, doesn't it? Okay. I'll give you homework. Well, actually, you know what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to check on digital lockers. I'll put it on digital lockers, okay? Or you can come tomorrow. If you come tomorrow sometime during the day, and I'll give you that worksheet, okay? I don't have it right now, though. I'll have to copy it a little later.